Good morning. Welcome to the Long Live Alternative Parties podcast. Free Press Media Press Inc., an alternative parties books publisher, sponsors this podcast. I'm Andrew Bouchard.
Welcome to the Long Live Alternative Parties podcast. Alternative Parties friends, we have another exciting guest on this podcast. Her name is Michelle, and she is running for governor in Connecticut as a Green Party member. So welcome to the podcast, Michelle.
Thank you so much for having me.
Michelle, we're glad to have you. So let us get started by you kindly giving us an introduction to yourself, a brief biographical sketch.
Okay. My name is Michelle Louise Bicking. I am first generation Caribbean American. My family is from the Eastern Caribbean. My father was from Barbados. My mother was from St. Vincent and the Grenadines next door. I grew up in the East New York section of Brooklyn. Was born in Manhattan, raised in Brooklyn. Went to Catholic school for most of my life. Actually thought about becoming a nun very seriously when I was in high school. I went away to college in Ohio, got my undergrad in Spanish Latin American Studies. A couple years later, got my first master's in public administration at Rutgers, and then my second master's at Springfield College in Springfield in social work. So right now I'm working full-time as a medical social worker. Most of my patients are on hospice. I actually trained specifically to become a hospice social worker when I was getting my second master's degree. I feel most confident and useful at entries and exits. So in addition to being a hospice medical social worker, I am a certified birth doula. So my life has always been about service. I think I've spent more than half of my life in some capacity working for others. So my run as governor is just extension of my experiences today.
Sure, sounds like a good fit. So what led you to the Green Party?
Well, when I came to Connecticut, I think it must be over 13 years now. Wow, time really flies. I was looking for a party affiliation that really shared my values. Always been very focused on human rights, social justice, the environment, especially touting more efficient, low-carbon footprint energies to have that in permanent circulation in our communities. And I didn't find it with the Democrats. I definitely didn't find it with Republicans. At the time, there was at least 11 to 14 different independent parties that had different stances completely from each other. So that didn't make any sense at all. And so when I happened upon the Green Party and found that it was the only non-corporate funded party, in addition to that, it had global roots with Green parties throughout the world. I thought that since my worldview was pretty global as well. I often refer to my family as a mini United Nations. We hail from all over the place. It really sat well with me. So I joined the party and early on when I moved here, and then became more active in terms of behind-the-scenes work for the party for many years.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
So since you're a medical social worker, how does that inform your politics?
Well, I never refer to myself, and I will never refer to myself as a politician. I'm a professional caregiver. That's my trade. That's my mission. That's my ministry. So, I find myself in the homes of the people who are most affected by climate change, by furloughs, unemployment, underemployment, food insecurity. I'm at their tables if they have them, and sometimes sitting on the floor talking about the best path forward. And, because there's such a dearth of resources, especially for seniors, the so-called indigent, even kids who are in transition from foster care, it's been a real difficult time to try to connect those dots for them and with them. So that pretty much guides the way I live my life, as well as what I bring to the table as Connecticut's future governor.
Sounds like you're in the front lines.
Yes, and that's where I prefer to be. I'm not afraid of the limelight. I know I say this a lot because there are some people who feel like they need to be in front, but I also am a believer in servant leadership. So I'm happy to take the back seat or push the car forward if that needs to happen. So that's where I find myself in this position, balancing the two. The desire to, want to be able to show up the resources of the people around me, and at the same time, be, able to stand up and speak for those who have not had a voice.
Kindly tell our audience how you describe servant leadership. Some people may have heard of that, other people may not be familiar with it. Kindly tell us your view of what that entails.
For me, servant leadership means that you recognize your role in helping very different points of view
Okay.
rally around a particular issue of concern. And even though the group of people may acknowledge you as some form of authority figure, whether you're bringing knowledge to the table, whether it's a position, a degree, or what have you, your role is to pretty much facilitate the conversations and not necessarily lead them. Because the focal point is on making sure that their needs are attended to, not adding to your own resume or shoring up your own ego. So for me, servant leadership is to be in service to those who are most need, in a fashion where they are the ones who are directing the policy changes. They are the ones who are making the lasting differences on how their communities are to be managed, etc. So, and my understanding of servant leadership is informed by my faith, my Christian faith. So
that's what I was thinking, because usually that's where it comes from, Christianity.
For some people, it's just a way of life that's not necessarily attached to any belief system, because you don't have to believe in servant leadership and actually have a particular faith or persuasion, or spiritual persuasion attached to that. I've often taught, actually, I take that back as far as spirituality, because I believe that everyone should have a sense of spirituality at some point in their lives. And for me, spirituality is the ability to connect with the divine or the greater unknown, whatever you want to call it, because it gives your life a sense of purposefulness beyond your physical condition, right? No one necessarily needs to have a religious belief unless they're so inclined to. My religious belief, as well as my spiritual sense of self, are the beacons for the work that I do. It gets me up in the morning. But it's not necessary in order to take on this role. So when I see the rise of Christo-fascism, it really irks me, because there are many paths to the great unknown, and it really bothers me that Christianity has been wrapped up in this whole sense of nationalism and and not really focused on the actual needs of people.
So how do you plan to implement your green vision during your race until you get elected in the office itself?
Every day is an opportunity for me to connect with those who are seeking to be heard in one way or the other. I always identify myself as a person-to-person person. I spend a lot of time, just listening and being present for what's going on in someone's lives. And it makes sense. It translates very well in terms of the work that I have to do on the campaign trail to earn people's votes as well as their trust and respect. So every day forward, that's the plan. Just to be present and available to those who need me. And as far as when I'm actually in office, my three major priorities are working through universal education. Making sure that that's something that's actualized within the next 2 to 3 years. Universal healthcare, so healthcare benefits for everyone, that is comprehensive and completely bundled. So there's no separate plans for eye care or dentistry or anything. It's all in one package that's very similar to single payer. And the third priority, which is it's a necessity in Connecticut because of our size, as well as the economic segregation that persists in this country, in this state, this country as well, is mass transit. I don't think Connecticut should be New York. I don't even think Connecticut should look like Boston. I think Connecticut has an opportunity to make its own system that speaks to the need of both our suburban, rural, and urban centers, and across the age gap. So those are my three priorities when I get in office.
Who are your opponents in this race, and what are they like?
I have two opponents. Actually, I have more than two. Sorry, there are five. You don't hear about the other three. You hear mostly about Lamont, who's the Democratic incumbent, and Stefanowski, who's the Republican challenger, who's attempted to rise to the gubernatorial position for several years now. They're pretty much the same person, rich, white, detached from the needs of everyday people, believing that pandering to those who are in the upper classes of our residency here will actually get them further because it'll get them more votes and it'll get them more money. So that's basically what I'm looking at, and there couldn't be any more stark of a distinction between myself, my background, my work as a clinician, former first grade teacher, than what they've done. They have business acumen, supposedly, but more often than not, business, just because you have a background in business doesn't mean that you're suited towards public service. In many ways, there's a lot of conflict and complications in the way you operate on a daily basis, because businesses look at bottom line, whereas when you're working with people, they don't fit in a particular category or on a bar graph. Everyone is very different. Needs of communities should trump those shareholders that you're trying to comply with. So the duopoly here in Connecticut is very, very apparent. And I treat the two candidates as the same person.
You don't see a distinction between them. They have the same
None
approach.
whatsoever. No, they pretty much have the exact same approach. Yep.
So what is your strategy for this campaign? How are you planning on reaching the voters?
Well, I had shared this at our Green Party annual meeting over the weekend. An uphill climb in the dark, in the rain. But the first thing that I have to do is to gain ballot access, because as you well know, third parties aren't granted ballot access. We have to earn it.
Yeah.
So in the state of Connecticut, I have to provide a minimum of 7,500 signatures in order to be on the ballot this year. And since a greater percentage of those are often thrown out for logistical reasons, whether they couldn't understand or couldn't read the address, or the person didn't put the right last name, or if they moved recently. So technically, according to my advisors, I have to get 12,000 signatures to be able to ensure that I have a place on the ballot. And that's been practically impossible because ballot access here, there's no digital option. So it is grossly inadequate, especially when you're working with people who are homebound or have access issues and they can't get to you or get out to places where you might be present with a paper petition for them to sign. So, and just with gas prices the way it is, and having to be able to go to people's houses and places to worship or wherever they find themselves has just been cost prohibitive. So we're doing the best that we can with a small team that we have. But it's been very rocky. It's been very rocky.
When do you need the ballot signatures by?
August 10th.
The 10th of August?
Yeah.
Okay. I hope that fate works out in your favor and you're able to get those ballot access signatures all done.
I hope so too. I mean, I'm rallying until August 9th, 11:59 p.m. So I was never one to give up. It's not in me. I have tried when I've seen like the darkest moments of my life, but I also know that I have the spirit of resilience that comes through my veins. It's just something that is always with me. So at this stage in my life, I am not one to give in or give up easily.
That's an excellent viewpoint. That's the way to be in this field of alternative parties.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm glad that you have that attitude.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Sure thing. So how can our audience out there support your campaign?
Well, thank you everyone who tuned in to listen to what I have to offer, and hopefully it resonates with you and where you are. someone who's emotionally and vested in your happiness and your well-being, even if you're out of state or out of country. If you have connections in the state of Connecticut that will be willing to help me get on the ballot, please reach out to them and have them reach out to me, and I will meet them where they are. That signature alone could be the one thing that actually gets me above the limit that I need to get. Because you never know. All of our voices count, and I'm grateful for anyone who enables me to make this possible.
Sure.
Because this one is truly for the people, by the people.
Sure. So where can they get in contact with you? Do you want them to email or visit a website, or how do you want them to get in touch with you?
Oh, there's a couple ways to reach me directly, which is perfectly fine. I know some people have, identified reps or campaign managers, but this is pretty grassroots. As grassroots as you can get. So my full name is Michelle Louise Bicking, B as in boy, Icking. Our website is roomatthetable4.us. So room at the table for us. My email account is my last name, Bicking.Michelle, my first name, @gmail.com. And my phone number, lastly, is 860-255-8189. Feel free to call me anytime. If you don't reach me, it's probably because I'm with a patient or with my son. That's where my life is right now. So, yeah.
We appreciate you offering your phone number. Not everybody does that. That's awesome.
Nope, that's not a problem with me.
Michelle, we thank you for coming on the podcast today, and we wish you all the best in your campaign and also in your personal and professional life.
Thank you very much. I extend the same courtesy to you. I wish you every happiness as well. I am grateful that you actually wanted to give another voice in terms of how politics or how people's lives are accounted for in our state of Connecticut, and I look forward to maintaining the connection.
Yes. All the best, and take care.
Thank you. Goodbye, everybody.